Hello and welcome to Fix and Drive. Today, I'm going to show you how to change the Freon on your Honda S2000. If you follow these steps, you'll have a car that is nice and cool. So let's get started. If you click in the upper right corner, you can see my previous video where I show you how to change the AC compressor and the Desiccant filter. First thing we're going to need to do is remove the access valve cover. It is held on by 3 Phillips head screws. It's located just underneath the hood release latch. Once the access cover is removed, you can see the high pressure valve, and if you come over to your battery, you will see the low pressure valve. I'll be using an AC vacuum pump and gauge kit that I purchased on Amazon. We'll have a description or link in the description below. This one comes with a vacuum, the gauges, and hoses and the connectors. Also includes the vacuum pump oil, which you'll want to make sure is between the min and max. Once we have the hoses connected, we'll need to connect them to the high and low pressure valves. The red goes to the high pressure and the blue goes to the low pressure. The yellow hose will go to the vacuum. So first we'll remove the cap off of the high pressure valve and set it aside. And then we'll use the quick connector to connect it to the valve. And you want to pull up on this connector and make sure that it clicks in. Then we'll take the low pressure and do the same thing. First we'll need to remove the cap and set it aside. We'll remove the connector from the gauge and connect it to the valve. Pull up on the sleeve, slide it on, and make sure it clicks in. Okay, now we're going to connect the yellow hose to the vacuum. We'll remove the protective cap off the vacuum. Then we'll screw the yellow hose on, making sure that it is snug and secure so there isn't any air leaks. Tighten it down. Once it's good and tight, we'll remove the cover for the exhaust, and then we'll plug it in. Now we want to open the valve on the connector for the high pressure, and we'll open it all the way. And then we open the connector valve for the low pressure all the way. Now we're going to switch on the vacuum. On this one, it's on the back. Okay, now that it's running, we're going to want to open both the valves at the gauges. We're going to let this run for about an hour, and doing this will suck all the moisture out of the line and give a negative pressure to the system. You can see that the pressure is getting close to negative 30 psi. Okay, the vacuum's been running for an hour. You can see that it's at negative 30 psi. I'm going to close the valves at the gauges. Make sure I have them all the way closed. And I'm going to close the high pressure side. And then turn off the vacuum. Okay, so we're going to let this sit for about an hour, and we want to make sure that these needles stay in the same place. This will ensure that we don't have any air leaks in the system. Okay, it's been an hour, and looking at the gauges, they have not gone down any, which is a great sign. This means that we don't have any air leaks and that we can start adding Freon to the system. Okay, here's everything we need to charge the AC system with Freon. We'll need a scale with safety glasses and gloves, 134A refrigerant. The sticker under the hood tells you that the minimum amount of refrigerant needed is 21.2 ounces and the maximum is 22.9 ounces. Okay, now it's time to add the refrigerant. So looking at the can, using 134A refrigerant, you'll notice the hole in the top. This is a self-healing can. That means it closes whenever you remove the tap. So there's two kinds of connectors. There's a puncture. You see it has a needle point tap inside. And this one will puncture the can and then will leak out refrigerant whenever it's removed. It will not work with a self-healing can. I had to purchase a self-healing can tap, which has more of a piston shape tap to open the cans. This one will open and close the can, and whenever I release it, the can will close back and not leak refrigerant. First thing we'll want to do is put on gloves and safety glasses. This refrigerant can hurt your hands, so keep them covered. Okay, so now we're going to take the yellow hose and we're going to connect it to the refrigerant tap. Make sure we have it screwed on good and tight. Okay, then we'll make sure that the tap is all the way open, and then we'll screw the can of refrigerant to the tap. Okay, so before we get started, we want to weigh the can with the tap and the hose to see how much we have. These are 12-ounce cans, so it's 18.38 ounces with the tap. So we'll want to empty this at 6 ounces. Okay, now we're going to turn on the car and then turn on the AC and turn the air up. Then make sure you leave your car in neutral. And I'm using a dual meat thermometer that I have the thermometer stuck in the air vents. And this will give me an accurate reading of the temperature. As you can see today, it's 108 degrees of air blowing out of my AC right now. So let's see if we can make this cooler. Okay, so before we go any further, there's one big mistake I made that I want to make sure you don't make. The high pressure valve should be disconnected and the gauge valve should be closed. So disconnect your high pressure valve and just leave it connected to the gauge, and make sure that the gauge is turned off. You will not need this when charging the AC. Okay, so now we'll turn the valve until it opens up the can. And we want to get, before we open the low pressure valve at the gauge, we want to make sure we have Freon pumping into the hose. And then we're going to purge the line. Okay, then we'll set the can on the scale and open up the low pressure valve. Once all the Freon's out, we'll open up the tap and then remove, or close the tap and then remove the can. Now we're going to add a second can. Then we'll set it on the scale, and we will only need 10 ounces from this can. So when it's at 8 ounces, we'll close the valve. All right, so now we're going to open up the can. Till Freon's pumping into the white line. We're going to purge the valve again to get any air out of the system. And then we'll open the low pressure valve. As you can see, it's now 52 degrees of air AC pumping out, which feels a lot better than the 108 degrees. And as you can see, we're at 8 ounces, so we're at a good range with the right amount of Freon in the car. So now we're going to close the can by releasing the valve, and then we're going to remove the yellow hose from the tap. The red high pressure line should have already been disconnected, so now just remove the low pressure line after the gauge has been closed, and then connect it back to the gauge on the hook. Then I'll insert the yellow hose onto the purge valve just to keep everything together. Now we'll take the high pressure cap, put it back on the valve, and the low pressure cap and put it back on the valve. Then we'll put the access cover back on, and then use the 3 Phillips head plastic screws to secure it down. And okay, you are good to go. I lost my 3rd screw. Okay, so that's how you change the Freon, or charge the Freon in your Honda S2000. Man, it feels so much better. I've been 3 years without air conditioning this car and just couldn't take it anymore. So now it feels great. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. And I'd love to hear your comments below. Thank you, stay safe, and God bless.